every time we're Rob Brown breaking it all down. Yeah. SEC, sideline sports on my mind. Rob Brown calling game time, highlight shine, executive mind. Brendan Martin keeping Rob in line. Like, subscribe, share it, tell everyone. Sideline sports, y'all come back real soon. Same place, same time, same tune. From the booth to the field, every Saturday feeling you home.
I feel like that's what you look like all the time. I feel like if I walked into your house, you'd be texting and looking at your phone. And Roger would be like, "Rob, stop texting.
Get your eyes on the
Stop
prize."
looking at your phone, Robert."
I know. Roberto, ¿dónde está? Buenos dias. Guten
No
Tag.
Spanish,
Good morning.
no,
Hey, y'all.
and-
Hey, it is coffee time, and we got a great lineup today. One of my favorite people ever. I love this guy, Jason Caldwell. He does not drink the Kool-Aid. He's a truth broker from Sylacauga, the marble capital of the world. The Oakley McFerrin, the intern. A lot of people tired this morning. I think the Auburn game got over at 11:30. But
did you watch Auburn last night? Wait.
yeah, they beat LSU. Boy, LSU is
Hardcore fan.
yeah, hardcore. And Gators won. A&M. Look, lot to cover today. We've also got Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com from out in Austin. Keep it weird. That guy is from Lakeland, Florida. Great reporter on the Horns. Dudley Dawson inside Arkansas in the second half, along with Mitz Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville. Do us a favor. Right now on Facebook, hit that boost. Share the show. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, 8 channels live. We do it Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m. Central. Tell your friends, family, neighbors, coworkers.
Don't hit the
enemies.
boost because you'll have to spend money.
Yeah, just share the show.
Like is fine with.
Yeah, like or share. Yeah, exactly. Whatever Brendan says, because he is the best executive producer in the world. And Jason, last night, never complained about a win. Late night, Oakley made a good point right before the show started. When you're struggling, you get down in that 11 a.m. spot for the college football games. And in basketball, you get the 9 o'clock start. It's almost like when you get into the NCAA tournament, they put you out, on the other side of the country. It's kind of late. But first off, your takeaways from Auburn, you talked about it last week. Be careful of not playing yourself out of the tournament.
Yeah, well, first, these games are set up months in advance.
Yeah.
So what your record is has no bearing on when you're playing or what time you're playing, because Vanderbilt was on the ESPN Plus last night. They weren't even on TV, and they're a ranked team. So, so you never know. But
we were more kidding about that than anything.
Yeah, but Auburn has – but people will take it seriously if you say it. So that's what I was
you're right.
You look, it's – I don't think there's any question that Auburn has to win in Tuscaloosa if they want to make the NCAA tournament. Yeah. I don't other than winning in the SEC tournament, which isn't happening for this team. I think you have to win Saturday in Tuscaloosa if you want to get in my opinion. I just don't know that there's any other way off the bubble for this team. I don't think you can get in be 7-11 in the league. I just don't think it's happening. So you've done this by losing to Mississippi State. In my opinion, Mississippi State, Ole Miss are the two. Oklahoma, you could win it in Oklahoma, and you could have done that, but losing in Starkville and losing at home to Ole Miss are the two that are going to end up keeping this team out if you don't win in Tuscaloosa Saturday. And look, they don't have anybody to blame. They just did not play well in games they need to play well in. It happens, but they're not good enough. And they're not good enough to have games where you don't play well and win. Last year's team was.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And that's the difference. Hey, look, it's the difference in Alabama and Georgia football as opposed to 10 years ago too.
Yeah.
10 years ago, they could not play well and still win. Well, it doesn't happen that way anymore because you're not as deep and you don't have as much talent. And that's the basketball team this year for Auburn. They're not good enough to win when they're not playing well. And last night you get 27 to Todd. Kevin Overton plays well, and magically you win games.
Yeah.
When those guys, when Tahad doesn't play well and Keyshawn Hall doesn't play well, it's really, really hard for this team to go out and win basketball games.
All right, another quick question. You go back to 2019, Auburn wins the tournament, ends up a 5 seed. They made the Final Four, but does winning a bunch of games in the tournament or winning the whole thing even help you? That's debatable.
Well, winning the whole thing does, because that's the only way that you get in if you do
For
that.
Auburn, it would be, but I'm talking about for just
Oh, yeah, I don't think it impacts seeding at all, in my opinion, anymore. Auburn was a 5 seed going into that one, and it might make the difference between last year winning the tournament being the overall number 1 seed, but it didn't overall. So you look at it and go, I think the only team it matters for is a bubble team. So I think a Missouri, for example, I think if you lose Saturday and you were to lose the first SEC tournament game, I think it impacts the bubble. I don't think it impacts seeding a great deal at all, because I think most of that stuff's going to be done before you get to the weekend. And so, no, I don't think it impacts you a great deal, other than if you're right there and they're trying to separate 4 or 5 teams around the country and they go, well, this team lost its tournament game, this team won. I think it can bump you up maybe in that regard, but I don't think it matters overall.
Yeah. Oakley, jump in here with questions for Jason Caldwell. Auburn undercover. You're muted, Oak. Okay. I think he was muted. Take the deal. But Jason, 7-11. This schedule was it number 2 toughest in the country. And Oakley, jump back in when you can. You were muted. We couldn't hear you. You fix it? Okay.
No.
But you can't go in. Last year, I think Oklahoma got in at 6-10. And there were 14 teams that made it last year. But strength of schedule, quad 1 wins. Auburn's got several good ones.
Yeah, no, they've been good, but this league isn't as good as it was last year, and that's part of it. And to be quite honest, I don't think 14 of 16 teams should get in the NCAA tournament.
No.
I just don't think that should be the case. It happened last year, and it's different. This is not softball, where you probably all 16 of your teams are probably 16 of the best 40 teams in the country. I don't think that's the case in college basketball. And so for Auburn, I think, look, you've given yourself and what do you always say? Don't put it in somebody else's hands.
Yeah.
Auburn put it in somebody else's hands by not winning games that you're supposed to win. And that's how you do it. You play a tough schedule, but you have to win games you're supposed to win. And you can't lose to Ole Miss at home. In the end, that one game is probably going to be the one that haunts them more than anything. Losing on the road, yes. But losing to Ole Miss at Devil Arena, you can point to a lot of things. That's going to be the one.
Yeah. Oak, jump back in here with Jason.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's good.
Okay.
You're good.
I think, speaking about ways for Auburn to get in, I think, yes, easy route is win Saturday and you're in probably. But I think we have a favorable, if the standings stay as they are right now, we play Ole Miss round 1, and then it would be followed up with Vanderbilt, which I think is manageable. I'm not saying we're going to do it. I think it's manageable. And I think the main problem with this team is we haven't had our 2 best players play good enough together really at all this whole season. And I think we thought the Florida game was really going to be a big turning point this season after that win. And that's when it kind of all unraveled, which is, I think, kind of took us all by surprise. But what are your primary concerns with this team, and why do you think it really didn't work this year?
Yeah. First of all, I just didn't think they were very talented. Not enough. You didn't have enough guys in this roster. And I said it a couple weeks ago. I didn't care who was coaching. I don't care if it's Bruce Pearl or Stephen Pearl or Coach K. This team was not going to go out and be a Final Four team. This wasn't going to happen. Now, should you be better than what you are now? Yes. And like I said, there's a couple of those games, and I think part of this is a brand new roster with a bunch of new pieces trying to figure out how to put it together, and a coach who'd never been a head coach before in year 1 having to do it. I think those 2 things combined to make this a really difficult situation. And so, had you you win 2 more games, and that might have been enough. But that's where I thought this team was. I said I thought they were between a 7 and a 10 seed NCAA tournament coming into the year. That's probably what you should have been, was about a 10 seed, and that would have been those 2 losses that you had. And listen, you talk about the things you do. Look, you can't – I don't care how much a coach preaches. You can only do so much with a team's effort. You can yell at them. You can fine them. You can do what you want to. and they don't have many options. Abdul Bashir being injured, Aporum being injured, like they just don't have a very deep bench. And so you try to push all the buttons you can. And when those guys have played well, they've been pretty good. But you don't have a veteran group, not in terms of veteran with this system. And I think that was, in the end, the biggest detriment to this team was you had to start all over, and there was no way around it because you had a bunch of old guys last year.
And a follow-up question for that is, would you put the blame for this year's team more on Bruce Pearl and maybe his roster construction rather than Stephen Pearl and how he's coached the team?
I think it's all of it. And Stephen was part of that roster construction too. So it's not just, he didn't come in, to coach a team that he didn't have any part of. He was part of that roster construction too. So it's to me, it's all of it. It's roster. It is the change. It's trying to put the pieces together. And listen, I've said it before. I'll say it again. For the Auburn fans that think money had something to do with this, it did not. Auburn spent a lot of money on this basketball roster. They did not, other than maybe Kentucky, they didn't take a backseat to anybody in this league about spending money for basketball. It's just the fact that you had to spend for an entire roster. And look at Kentucky. They do the same thing. They spent a lot of money. They had to rebuild an entire roster, and they're not very good. And so Michigan, that Auburn last year, Florida, that's how you spend NIL money in basketball rosters. You have 4 or 5 players returning, and you go get 4 or 5 good players. That's how you do it. You can't go get 9 players and expect them. It's not going to work that way. So for Auburn now, can you keep 4 or 5 key guys, and then can you go get 4 or 5 good players? That's how you have to build it. And so, yeah, we'll see. But I think it's everything. I don't think there's any one thing, in my opinion.
You look at Franz Beard and I talk a lot about basketball, and he said, remember Stephen Pearl, he's in his first year, but also Todd Golden was 16 and 17 in year 1 at Florida. What is it that you see that you like a lot? Stephen, you followed him his whole career.
Yeah, no, I think he has tried to instill some discipline. I think that's the first thing you look at here. And listen, does that work in this day and age? I don't know. We'll find out. But I think it's trying to establish some things that you want as a program. And he's a little bit different than his dad, but very similar in a lot of ways too. But he's young. And like Todd Golden, a little bit, I won't say a little bit brash, but those guys are confident guys, and they get after it. But you look and you go, and Todd had some big men pieces to build around, and then has added some key pieces around the roster, done a good job. Now for Auburn, you don't have that. Like if Stephen had taken over last year, that team would have been pretty good. Wouldn't have mattered. And so now you look at it going, okay, what does year 2 look like? And again, how many guys can you keep, and what pieces can you add to it? It's going to be really key.
Jason, you got a mind like a mechanical engineer, seriously, because you said something a few weeks ago. Older is better. I mean, just take a look, go get older guys. So it's going to be fun. I know you put out a lot of great stuff, podcasts and everything on that Auburn Undercover site. Tell people how they can follow you. Got to get you on for a longer segment next week if you can. Just get into some football and baseball, because I really think you've got a spot. You should be a permanent part of the Auburn Baseball Network broadcast. That's just my opinion. You're great at it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, check us out at auburnundercover.com, part of the 24/7 network, and all the social media platforms there, YouTube, all those things, Instagram. Follow us at auburnundercover.com, and find me on Twitter at ITATJason.
I'm always going to be an Inside the Auburn Tigers fan. I love you. Keep that address, man. Take care. Thanks so much.
Guys, appreciate it.
All right, let's head out to Austin, Texas right now. Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com. Anwar, man, love having you on here. I see you a lot. Paul Feinbaum, a lot of different shows. And I love the belts in the background. I don't know if those are from wrestling, as we spell it in the South, and you're from Lakeland, Florida. WRAS. What are those? Those are cool.
Those are fantasy football championship belts that I got to annoy the people in the league when I played. I've since retired, but I went and ordered it, and I showed up to the fantasy draft with it one time looking like Manny Pacquiao. Everybody hated me, and I just kept doing it. So I kept winning, and I just kept adding to it. I actually have a fourth that I'm supposed, but I never ordered that one.
There you go. Well, we love you. I think they're cool. I got Oakley McFerrin, the intern, sophomore down at Auburn, so he's learning, going to have some questions.
Before.
Yeah, and he's we were talking with Jason Caldwell just now about Auburn. Let's talk some Texas. I see Mark Stoops is coming down there to join that staff. You brought in Will Muschamp. Of course, he was coaching waiting when Mac Brown was there. Lot going on in Texas. So as MJ says down on 38, let her rip, potato chip. Let's go.
I would just say, how I would describe the Texas offseason is I would describe it as all chips in as a program could be to try to win a national championship in 2026. They have spared no expense when it comes to coaches, transfer portal players, and then retaining the guys that they want. They've gone all out. When you talk about Muschamp has a guaranteed $8.5 million salary, 3 years, with things that can hit more bonuses. He's earning an average of nearly $3 million a year to be the defensive coordinator, replacing Pete Kwiatkowski, right? So you already say, like, all right, you go all in on that. They brought back Blake Gideon as a DB's coach. They hired Jabbar Jalouk, who was a Florida running backs coach. So they add those guys to the staff. In addition, you just mentioned Stoops, who's kind of like the personal assistant to Steve Sarkisian. And look, you follow the SEC. Kentucky has given some folks some of that work. If you look at it, you look at Georgia, how they've had to compete against Georgia, Ole Miss, right? You look at that. So he's been able to do a lot of good work with his hands kind of tied behind his back. Now all of a sudden you give him some thoroughbreds to really work with, and as an advisor to Sark. And now look, he wants to keep that Kentucky salary because they owe him a whole lot of money. So he's going to make sure he gets his money, and he's just going to play around down here in Austin for a while and enjoy himself. So you've got that. But then, Rob, you also, that's the staff, then Texas really went hard in the transfer portal. And that's the thing that, I think Texas is going to try to add a piece here or there, a couple of guys here or there. But they never really said, you know what, we're just going to look for starters, just a bunch of starters in order to make this team better. And they did do that. They pick up Hollywood Smothers from NC State, but they also get Raleek Brown, 2 running backs. Raleek Brown's a 1,000-yard running back at Arizona State. They pick up a Hollywood Smothers. So all of a sudden, you look at that backfield and you say, well, that's going to be a whole lot better than they were before. Obviously, they pick up Cam Coleman, who you're familiar with. Oh, yeah. Some would argue he's one of the better receivers, if not the best receiver in the SEC. Some would say he's one of the best receivers in the country. So they're able to pick up Cam. They pick up another guy by the name of Sturden Bulkholter. They try to add to the offensive line, and that would probably be an area you would say to yourselves, okay, they could do a little bit better there. But they also add Michael Masunis, a transfer from Michigan State. They add in a couple of guys on the defensive line, and really they bolstered the linebacker crew. They bring in a Rasheem Biles, who was there at Pitt. They also bring in Justin Cryer, who was at Florida State, right? So that's to add into what they already have, which is your Arch Mannings of the world, the Colin Simmons of the world. So I say it all to say that Texas last year probably undeservedly got a lot of hype and probably undeservedly got a lot of benefit of the doubt. And of course, they didn't live up to anybody's expectations, including their own. This would probably be the year, though, if you got on the hype train, it would make sense. And it would also be the year that I would honestly say, if it doesn't happen this year, I just don't know when it'll ever happen. I just don't know. There's too many weapons for Texas to have from a coaching staff perspective, from a continuity perspective, from a player perspective, the athleticism. They've got everything. They've got all the tools that are there. It's just a matter of, can they put it together? If they don't, it would be a massive disappointment.
Yeah. Oh, jump in here with Anwar Richardson, orangebloods.com.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit to, obviously, the one of the bigger acquisitions in the offseason was Cam Coleman, kind of shocking the world, entering the portal, and committing to Texas. Kind of speak how his impact will be on this team, not only helping Arch Manning, but also the other receivers and the run game.
Texas did not have a receiver last year that could take the top off. They just didn't have that. They didn't have that explosive. They went from having a Matthew Golden a couple of years ago, ends up being a first-round pick. They had an Isaiah Bond before. They had really good things, but last year was kind of, and they had guys who were, productive, but none of them were really stars. And Ryan Wingo came on a little bit late in the season, but you still didn't have a guy who could take the top off. Cam provides them with a guy who could take the top off, because the one thing about Arch Manning is he loves to push the ball down the field. Sometimes we joke that, Arch might see a guy who's, who could be a check down. He's like, why are you waving your hands at me, man? Just get out the way. I'm trying to find this other guy who's about 20 yards down the field. So Cam provides for them an explosive receiver that they did not have last year. And now when you have him with a Ryan Wingo on the other side, now all of a sudden you've got a really great 1-2 combination of things to go to. And now because of that, yes, it will open up the run game. Like I said, the run game last year under Sark might be the most pedestrian run game I think he's ever had in his college coaching career. I don't know if he's ever had a bunch of guys who, none of those guys were really explosive. Even your Contravion Wisener, who transfers to Florida State, wasn't really an explosive running back. But now you got explosive backs. So for Sark, there's a multitude of weapons for him to work with, whether he's going to go with the Cam, whether he's going to go with Ryan Wingo. They'll move, a guy, Emmett Mosley into the slot. And then again, the running backs that you've mentioned. I think the key for Texas is, I don't want to bury the lead here, it's going to be their offensive line, though. If I had to say what is my big question mark, it really is that offensive line. I don't know. They wanted to get that line better in the transfer portal. They went after a lot of guys. They whiffed on a lot of guys, and we're not able to get the talent that they probably needed up there. You've got Trevor Gooseby as the left tackle, and he's a future first round pick. So you're solid on that side as far as that goes. The guard position is a huge question mark for them. They did get Melvin Siani out the transfer portal from Wake Forest. He'll be on that right tackle spot. They're moving a guy a guy inside, and so they've got some guys there, but I just don't know how that thing is going to hold. That to me is going to be the biggest key. And Brandon Baker is the guy I was trying to. I blanked on his name for a second. That key for me is, can that offensive line stand up? And by the way, as much as I love Trevor Gooseby, right now he's injured. He's recovering from shoulder surgery. Yeah. I've been hearing that he may not play at all during the spring. I don't like shoulder surgeries, injuries, especially when it comes to big guys up front. So we'll see how that goes. But to me, talent-wise, this is going to be one of the most talented teams in the country. But if it had a question mark, it's going to be the offensive line.
Yeah. Well, Ryan Wingo out of St. Louis, 5-star receiver, Cam Coleman, that's 2 5s out there. I got a question about Arch Manning. Archie, you and I grew up watching him play. I mean, that was incredible. Then you had Peyton and Eli. Cooper hurt in the neck injury. He was a wide receiver at Ole Miss. He didn't play. But then you've got Arch. Is he as hungry, from what you can tell, as he would be if he hadn't have gotten all that NIL money? I mean, he was getting a lot of money as a backup to Quinn Ewers, and we all know that was kind of strange. Like, hey, Quinn, you've done a great job. Go on, 7th round pick. It didn't work out well for him. But do you see Arch, I watched Matthew Stafford as a true freshman, and I've seen a lot of really good ones as true freshmen. If a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. Is Arch going to be ever what everybody really thinks he can be? Because you see it every day. Your boots on the ground.
Yeah, I would say there is a lot of hunger for him. And, you got to – last year was probably the first time in Arch Manning's career where he was doubted. by a lot of people. He was built up, but I don't think Arch Manning has ever dealt with criticism the way he had to deal with criticism last year. Like, you don't forget, The Athletic came out with some sort of article last year calling him, questioning if he's one of the biggest flops, in college football history, right? And I may be paraphrasing, but it's pretty close to that. I'm pretty close to a point on that, right? And so this is the first time he had to deal with any kind of adversity, and he had to really bounce back from that. So it was bad. Like, it was bad. And to be fair, he started off poorly. Like, he did it. The Arch Manning I saw at the end of last year, if he does that against Ohio State, they probably win that game, right? Yeah. But he played so poorly to start the season, and the Kentucky games and all these other games are there. So, but you did see him start to get better towards Mississippi State. So more than halfway through the season, you saw him in the bowl game and how good he looked there. And so there is a thing with Arch where I do believe he's trying to create his own name, his own legacy. He's different than his uncles. People get surprised with how fast that he is, and the kind of the dual threat thing. It is kind of like you mentioned, Rob. People forget his dad is Cooper, right? His dad was a wide receiver, right, in the SEC, right? So that meant he had a whole lot of athleticism, So people think about the statue of Peyton and all these, like, no. His dad is one hell of an athlete. It was one hell of an athlete. Like you said, the injury cut it short, right? So I do believe there's a hunger there. And look, there is a pressure here, because if the Arch Manning era ends with them going to another Cheez-It Bowl, it's being a huge disappointment. Yeah, like, it's a huge disappointment. It is a huge letdown if that was what happens. Like, this team has got to be a playoff team. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts with that, and they need to make a deep playoff run. So there is some pressure that's there, but I do understand that even though there's pressure associated with it, that it's not something that's overcoming him. But I do believe he has something to prove, and he does act like and does practice like a guy who does have something to prove. Now, he is coming off of foot surgery, so he'll be limited in the spring. They're not going to take any chances with that guy. But I do believe the hunger is there, and they put enough talent around him where, again, failure is just not an excuse. It can't be something that happens for 2026 in Texas.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Obviously, Texas brought in a very, very highly touted freshman class this year. Who are some guys to look out for that maybe could crack the rotation at certain positions?
I'm going to just be honest with you. I appreciate it. These freshmen ain't playing, man. The thing is, and this is the challenge right now, and you have it like, a little bit in college football. When you're going after transfer portal guys and you're putting those guys on your roster and you're paying them X amount of dollars, man, those freshmen got to wait. That they had a bunch of 5-star freshmen last year, and they were rotational guys, and that's cool. But maybe only one or two actually ended up being real contributors, solid contributors on the team. I almost look at a freshman class nowadays in today's world of college football, like, that's cool. We'll see if you're around after, one season, because these guys get frustrated and they bounce because I'm not playing. And I just think the way this team is loaded, it's loaded more, it's built more around upperclassmen. It is not a whole lot of wiggle room for young guys to come in, barring some sort of injury or barring that they just are bananas and out of this world. It's just hard to do that. So they do have talented guys, but the guys that they have on this roster, they have built this thing to have a championship run in 2026. It would take one hell of a freshman to get into this lineup, because right now it just that door seems barely open.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know what the average age is of Texas, but we all know Indiana was 22.5 last year. Mm-hmm. So age, experience, wisdom matter, and that goes to the state of Texas, #1 state in America for high school football. What's the reaction, and what are you hearing from coaches? We all know about the Texas High School Coaches Convention. Oakley, they have this every year. I think in San Antonio, over 15,000 coaches are there. Yeah. There's got to be some pain right now being felt by them because they want their kids to get scholarships.
Yeah, but it's the reality of this, of where we are now, and especially in the NIL world. The The days of regional recruiting and dominating your state are
They're over.
done. That's done. The days of I grew up in Florida and I want to either go to Florida or Florida State. That's over, right? The days of I grew up in Texas. I want to go to Texas or Texas A&M. Same way you can talk about California. Same way you can talk about Louisiana, right? And I want to grow up and I'm going to go to LSU. It's impossible nowadays. First and foremost, you've got 7-on-7. And so because of 7-on-7, kids travel all throughout the country all year long competing, right? So the world is bigger than it was when you and I, Rob, were growing up, right? We just had regional programs, right? So these guys are traveling all over the country all the time. They're getting to see this program. Obviously, they can watch games on their phones and things to that effect. And so, in programs that they've grown outside of their state. Texas, it used to be like, oh, you got to keep the, locked down. You can't lock it down when you've got Alabama coming into your state and Georgia coming into your state and Ohio State coming into your state, like all those kind of things. It's impossible. So as much as those guys may say to themselves, hey, we want to, put a wall around the state. The reality is, no, as a Texas high school coach, you got to tell your kid, hey, Texas may or may not want you, but you're going to have to find a home somewhere. And your best route, quite honest with you, Rob, I'll shut up in 10 seconds. It's really to go to a school that is mid-level, ball out, and then transfer, as opposed to going right away to a blue bud and possibly sitting.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know you got to get rolling. Orangebloods.com, Anwar Richardson. Thank you. Let's do it again soon. Great.
No problem, guys. Take care.
All right. Hey, we got Inside Arkansas, Oakley McFerrin, the intern. Always cannot wait to get to class to keep that 4.9 GPA going. Those are some damn good questions. That you had about Texas. Got some Arkansas stuff now. Dudley, that basketball game hurt the other night against Florida. Hogs got 11 conference wins. Talk about how they need to close out. They got one game left. And Cal, he really knows how to get a team ready for a tournament.
Yeah, I'll talk about it, but it looks like my boy needs to tap out and get class.
Okay. Be good. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Will do.
I can read body language, man.
No, I knew he had to go. It's 8:30. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He's got to get to class. I tell you, I wasn't a 4.0 student, but I made 99.99% of my classes because it was just drilled in me as a kid. You just didn't miss school, and if you did, they knew. Brother Adrian, he knew. I mean, they'd find out.
I had a late friend who, anytime my parents would call, especially my mom, he'd say he's at the library. And so my mom always thought I was studying. She didn't know that was a nightclub on 71 North. So, I was at the library. I just maybe wasn't studying. I can't do 99%. I can't lie. I can't say I was at 99% of my classes, but I did graduate. I did the best I could with what I had. Now, you're talking about that basketball game. Obviously, Florida, they played well for the first 10 minutes, and then Florida just ran them. And I think it showed an Achilles heel for Arkansas in that they're just not good enough inside yet. I mean, maybe you catch fire and do it during the tournament. But Florida dominated on the inside. That's where Arkansas it's weakest in its overall. I still think they've got a chance, Sweet 16, Elite 8, all that. But you're going to have to get better play inside, and we'll see how it plays out. Now, you've got the old rivalry, Arkansas and Texas, tonight here in Fayetteville. And everything that they needed to happen last night for them to keep a hold of one of those 4 double buys in the SEC tournament happened. So now it's their turn to do what they need to do.
Get a 12th win in the league too. That's not going to be bad. I know Vince will be on in a minute talking some Tennessee, but I look at Arkansas. Darius Acuff. You've got him. You lost Boogie Flans, and you still got a damn good team. How deep can you get a roster though with I hate to say that word, but you know the situation.
Well, that leads me right into this situation we had announced this morning, and I knew it was coming. I was pretty sure what was going on, but Tyson uh, agreed to Johnny Tyson and Tyson Chicken agreed to a 5-year deal today, with all 19 sports at Arkansas. They'll have the Tyson patch on their logo. There's going to be a variety of different branding things that Tyson is going to get out of this, and all the money. I don't know how all this works, but all the money will go to the NIL package. So you just added a bunch of money to your ability to acquire athletes. So that's how you're going to compete. I mean, you can have great coaches, but you got to have the amount of money. Certainly, they've been doing that with basketball, with the help of Johnny Tyson. But I think that now the other sports are going to get some love from that, and this seems like a really good deal for the University of Arkansas. That Johnny Tyson, who I count as a friend. You don't want to count him as an enemy. I count him as a friend, and he's someone that is trying to help the athletic program. And they are, again, I've said all along from when this started that Arkansas was running uphill in terms of NIL and competing. They're at least on level ground now. They may not be at the top of the mountain, but they're at least on level ground. Yeah. And I give them credit for getting this done with Tyson.
It's like Fred Smith, the family, and he passed away in July. The $25 million 5-year deal with the University of Memphis, and who knows when AutoZone comes on board? Who knows what's next? Vince Ferrara, sports animal in Knoxville. Tennessee got a win. Of course, everybody's winning in Columbia now when they play. I mean, I'm shocked at the way Lamont Paris started off 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Where they are now. But, hey, it's a win for the Vols. One of the players was being interviewed after the game. Did he break his nose? I mean, his nose – it looked like his nose was swollen, but it was Calistrelis was being interviewed. That's a sharp kid. Have you had a chance to have him on your show yet?
You talking about JP Estrella?
Estrella, yeah.
One of the posts. Yeah, he had a great game. Led him in scoring last night.
He's really good.
I did not see that. I saw his SEC Network interview.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't notice him. You saw him bleeding or something?
No. His nose just looked like he'd been hit. I mean, probably got an elbow or something like that in there. But 22 points, man.
How about 15 dunks in the game for Tennessee? I mean, that it was Lob City. I mean, it was a constant Gillespie lobbing to Okpara, who had 8 dunks himself, and Estrella had some too. And it was incredible how they were able to draw South Carolina to the penetration of the guards and just lob behind them. And they were so dominant inside. How about outscoring South Carolina 56-18 in the paint? I mean, it was just dominant. 56 of their 78 points were in the paint. Gillespie had a career high 12 assists in the game. Only the second time this year hasn't been in double figures, but they didn't have Nate Ament, their leading scorer in conference play. And Gillespie, your second leading scorer and leading scorer on the season, only had 8. And they still ran away from South Carolina on the road because of the way Okpara and Estrella dominated inside. They were 20 of 27 from the floor with their 2 bigs, both scoring over 20 points and 15 rebounds. So it's exactly what Tennessee needed. They needed other guys to show that they can score when they don't have to rely on Ament and Gillespie. The big story was Ament going in because of him being out with that ankle sprain against Alabama that he re-aggravated from the Missouri game. They got to get him healthy, or this team is not making a run. With him, with other players contributing and showing they're capable of that, they can put it together and be a force because of the different ways that they can win and with that inside force. But we'll see if it is available against Vandy. But Rick Barnes kind of alluding that maybe it's a blessing in disguise and Ament missing time because he feels like no one has been played more physical this year than Ament because of that slender frame. and he thinks that maybe the time off might help him heal his full body and kind of get a little bit more juice with the physicality of the toll of the season. So we'll see if he doesn't play against Vandy on Saturday at home, which is such an important game to try to get that double bye. They'll have, and if they do get the double bye, then he won't have to play until next Friday.
Yeah,
that's ideal if you're trying to heal everything going into the postseason.
yeah. Ed, Eugene.
Well, again, I agree that the one coach told me, and this was a high school coach, told me that if I could make most of my 2 points, I'd be okay with a third of my 3-pointers.
Yeah.
And that sounds like what happened last night. And the 3-pointer is a great thing that came into basketball. And yes, there are many programs and coaches that love to use it, but I will remain a pounded inside guy, whether I'm in playing football or playing basketball, or to be honest, playing baseball if I want to knock somebody off the
Yeah.
plate.
All right. Basketball wise, we'll start with you, Vince, and then back to Dud. Last year, you had 4 teams that you thought could win it all: Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, and Auburn. This year, Florida looks like the team that can win it all, but there's got to be 3 other in that top 4. I'll start with you, Vince.
Well, I think to me, Arkansas, Tennessee, and Alabama are in that next group. I would expect those to be the 4 that get the double buys in the SEC tournament. We'll see. Tennessee, can they lose at home? I mean, they lost at home to Alabama. They've blown 5 double-digit leads this year, which is the most in the league. That's just the games that they've lost with a double-digit lead. They've also blown double-digit leads in some games that they ended up figuring out and still winning. So they have to do more than win at South Carolina to kind of shake off some of the question marks about this team. I also don't think that they're quite the defensive team that they have been under Rick Barnes the last couple of years with Meshack and Ziegler and Gainey and those guys. They were clutch in getting a stop and willing them to the finish line. I don't think they're quite like that. But if you're going to pick, I think there's a gap between Florida and everybody else. I mean, what Florida did to Arkansas, Dudley, you are well aware of this, was incredible. And they can do that to anybody, great or not. So it's them to me as the only legitimate national championship contender. But if you're going to name the next group to consider a deep run or some sort of run in the tournament, I think those other 3 would be your best candidates.
Yeah, and I think those 4 schools are the ones that have the opportunity to win the SEC tournament. And I would give Missouri and Kentucky, because Kentucky believes it's its birthright and all that. And I'm sure they'll bring a ton of fans. But in Missouri, I think it's just dangerous. They're great one night, and then they just, you don't know what's going on the next night. But a lot of talent there. So those are the teams that I think could win the SEC tournament. But I sit here right now thinking that the only team in the SEC that can win the national championship is Florida. That would be my bet. I mean, I've watched tons of games. I see strengths with everybody. I see flaws with everybody. Florida seems to find everybody's flaws, when they're out there on the court. So I think as I sit here right now, and I would say that's the only team I think that could go all the way. I think a lot of them, 4, 5, 6 of them could get to the second weekend and make some noise. But the rest of them, to me, have some deficiencies that will keep it from going all.
So, guys, this is kind of like, I'm sorry, Rob, this is kind of like football, right? Where you can brag if you want to wave the SEC flag, you can brag about having the most teams in. The SEC had the most teams in the college football playoff, but who's winning it all? That's the ultimate scoreboard. The SEC might have the most of any conference, but they have less national championship contenders than those other power conferences, including, of course, the Big 12, Big 10, maybe even ACC, probably just Duke in the ACC, I guess. But I don't. They'll have more teams, but they're not as deep in terms of national championship contenders as it sits right now.
Yeah. Hi, Vince. Your sponsor when you're on here is my good friend Larry Cervetti, Matei's Garage. 4930 Black Road in East Memphis, right by Folks Folly, open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 a.m. I was in there the other day, and Larry's a huge Tennessee fan. And Will, one of the mechanics, just a simple oil service, you pay $60. They go in there and they check everything. It's like one of those full physicals, not just a, hey, how you doing, drive-by. Larry has a question, and that question is for Vince and Dudley. I like this. He said, why is it that Kentucky spends more money than anybody, and they're back, not even really middle of the pack? What is the key factor to developing a roster in today's environment? Start with Vince and then back to Dudley.
Well, I think you have to have the projection and how those pieces are going to work together, not only in style of play, but in personality and in culture. What motivates those kids? Are they in it for the stats and to quickly get to the NBA, and that's their driving force, or do they have that goal and that achievement level, but they're willing to be process oriented and do the things it takes to be great, and then let the personal success happen based off of that. It's on the coaches to hit on the portal the right way, and you have to get the elite high school talent, but you have to get the right portal guys and be a blend of young and old. And I just don't think that they've got that at Kentucky. When you're that up and down, I just don't think they have enough of the team guys to be successful on a day in, day out basis and be more consistent. So I just think they're a little bit off in terms of the way their roster is put together, despite the dollars.
Dudley?
And I have a couple of things. Number one, it's no matter how you do your roster at the start of the year, you've got to remain healthy. And I'll give Kentucky a little leeway because Jaden Quainance, who was a fabulous player coming into the season, but hasn't played hardly any at all, he would have made them a lot better. But that being said, they spent $28 million. That's to my understanding. They got a lot of great components, but it's many times about the components playing together. And I think that at times, Kentucky, unlike Arkansas, who has Acuff, they've got a really good player, but he doesn't take over like Darius Acuff does a lot of times. And I think that Arkansas's roster that was put together pretty well, but they haven't gotten the years out of Malik Irwin and Nick Pringle that they thought. And man, if you're going to miss, you got to have a big time center these days, or at least somebody that can score inside. And those guys have been inconsistent. I'm not breaking any news there, but I think it's a combination of staying healthy and finding guys who can play together. And that's why I've fought so hard against analytics. I like the eye test, but I do realize that analytics has to play into this, and that's why I've acquiesced to the plus minus situation that they started putting in box scores. I thought that's just taking up space, But now I as I look at it more, how you play when other people are on the floor becomes a big thing, and now I'm sold on that a little bit when it used to be just my eye test. Maybe it's because my eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
The eye test. Vince, another one I'll throw at both of y'all. Outside the SEC, greatest top four. I mean, give me your top four.
Ooh, outside
not including Florida.
Okay, well, I mean, this will be boring, probably, chalk to me, because I just think kind of like in the SEC, there's a tier. I think there's a tier with everyone else: Duke, Michigan, Arizona, and UConn. I mean, outside, it won't play out that way because you're never going to get all one seeds. By the way, I think Florida, if they win out and win the SEC tournament, I think they deserve a one seed. Now, they would probably be going up head to head with UConn, who they lost to in pre-conference, and UConn would have fewer losses, even if they lose to St. John's. And don't do well in their tournament, which would be surprising. But I think regardless of what Florida's record is, they would warrant a one seed in the NCAA tournament. So those would be the four outside of Florida.
Yeah.
And the two I would add that I'm not saying their season has been where you should be a number one seed, but I watched Houston play and I watched Texas Tech play, and if JT Toppin hadn't gotten
Yeah.
hurt at Texas Tech, then Texas Tech would have been one of my
Yep.
choices. Houston is really the only other one I see right now that I would be willing to bet any money on getting to the end. Again, I talk about deficiencies in teams. Watch a lot of ball. I see a lot of deficiencies. Everybody can get hot. Heck, man, I hope Miami of Ohio wins it just to shut some people up.
Some people.
Yeah, I'm going to ask both of y'all. That's the next question. Miami of Ohio, are they? And Bruce Pearl was talking on that CBS deal. Maybe an at-large. We all remembered Indiana State, Michigan State, 1979, and that's the game that really drew us all into March Madness. Kenny Loggins wrote the song, "If This Is It," make no mistake. Dick Enberg, Al McGuire. I mean, you couldn't get any better than March 1979, Vince.
Yeah, I think I think Bruce Pearl maybe went a little bit long or strong in his commentary towards them to try to make a point. Especially because of Auburn's struggles, which have Auburn fans, as you guys have talked about, I'm sure on the show, are really frustrated. But no, I'm fine with Miami, Ohio. I think a lot of teams from Power 4 schools would not want to see them pop up as like a 12 seed going up against them. So yeah, they'll deserve to be in the tournament. You got to see what happens and let it play out. There's plenty of teams that have played a schedule that has been like theirs or worse, and they haven't come close to getting through unscathed. So give them a spot over any of the incredibly flawed, power conference schools.
I remember
Whether they deserve to be in the tournament and whether they are going to be successful in the tournament are two very different questions. I would have gone with another school instead of Auburn, since it's the one I worked at, and my son would be the coach there. I would have picked another school, and maybe his point would have been a little bit better. And hey, I think the dude's a great coach. I'm not trying to get on him, but when I say stupid stuff, people call me on it. So I get to call other people when they say what I think is stupid stuff.
Well, and we all remember the Fighting Zerbiaks, Wally Zerbiak, Miami of Ohio. That was a fun run. He went on played in the NBA.
There's a lot of those teams that have made March Madness. So we can talk about the Blue Buds and all that. And yes, they've won plenty of them. But I mean, I think about teams that back in the day when you were senior loaded would come in and take teams out, and you'd be saying, who in the heck is, Boise State or, whatever in basketball and all that. And so I look forward to it every year.
Davidson, St. Peter's made a deep run a couple of years ago. So, I'm fine with some of those teams being in. So,
if they lose in their conference tournament, don't put them in, I'll be mad. I will think that's a legitimate oversight.
Yeah, I agree with Miami, Ohio specifically. If other teams have 2, 3, 4 losses, and then that's a different conversation.
Strength of schedule, guys. Start with Dudley. Is that overrated? 30 seconds or less?
Well, I think it's important. It's a component they put in there. But once again, if you win every game or all but one game on your schedule, you still should be viewed as an NCAA team. I mean, it's Division I college basketball. It isn't youth league.
Vince, great point.
Yeah, I think it does matter. And a lot of the metrics they use, whether it's the NCAA net or the Ken Palm, they do factor those in to some degree. I mean, you see some teams that are ranked pretty high out of those mid-majors that have barely played any quad one games. So it's a kind of a give and take. You also still need to win some of them too. You can't just play them.
Yeah. Well, and you look, I like what Dudley said, deserve to be in the team. How far will they go regarding Miami? It's like, he's going to be a great pro player. I don't care if he doesn't help my college team. I don't care either. I'm concerned about college. All right.
And let's be honest about let's take my Dallas Cowboys for example. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. Stephen A. Smith, yada 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 yada. I ain't worried about winning a Super Bowl. I just want to get in the freaking playoffs.
Yeah. It's been a while, Vince. Vince, you're a Tampa Bay fan, aren't you, Bucks?
Yeah.
I mean, how could you not be? But I March Madness, guys, we're gonna have to do extra stuff, whatever. But I'm ready for this to get here. In the tournament, it's over Saturday night. Next Wednesday, it cranks up in Nashville. Y'all going to Nashville?
I was just about to say I will be there. So right after your show is when we'll head after my show and after doing your show next week is when I'll hit the road to Nashville. So yeah, I'll be there all week.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
I would say that that baseball is my favorite sport, and I'm going to be here covering it. But if my grandson still lived in Nashville, my butt would be there. But I'll be covering baseball next weekend. It should be big time.
Yeah.
I think Arkansas and Mississippi State.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
God, it starts a week from Friday. SEC baseball.
Yeah,
the Friday the 13th. It'll probably start Thursday the 12th. But
yeah, they do a lot of they did do a lot of TV scheduling and get it on Thursday night, which I think is a great deal because there's not a lot on Thursday night that if you're a baseball fan that you can grab.
Well, if you took a view from outer space and watch TV sets in the Southeastern Conference geographical footprint, watching Major League Baseball, they have annuitized the future of Major League Baseball with the success of SEC baseball. We're paying attention, Vince, wouldn't you say? My wife was talking about Tony Vitello last night. She goes, he's gone. I go, yeah, you remember that? The Giants. And she goes, but he was such a great Tennessee guy. I go, well, Vince,
when did you find out?
I'm like, he's been gone for a while. Vince, hey, just between us on this show, Tony is with the San Francisco Giants, Audrey. He is? I love my wife. She is a trip, man. But that's right. But I mean, baseball is the greatest sport to go to in person. I don't think there's any question about that.
And here's what will enhance it is daylight savings time is coming this weekend. God. So that it's perfect with baseball, softball, go out to those sports and be able to enjoy them and it get dark much later. It's a beautiful thing. It should be the case all year, but so excited that it'll be here in time for conference play. And softball starts conference play this weekend as well, 1 week ahead of baseball.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed an hour earlier tonight and an hour earlier tomorrow night to make sure I don't get whacked up on
you're going to make up for that hour.
Mr. Gorbachev, give me back my hour. I love it. Hey, Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville, and Dudley Dawson inside Arkansas. Two of the best true grit journalists in America. Thank you so much. Heber Springs has never looked better, and Vince lives in the checkerboard orange and white stadium. Luckiest man in the world.
Hey, I appreciate it. We had Danny White on the show. He spoke about Kim Caldwell and some of the criticism and a lot of the national issues. So really good stuff. Check out that podcast, 991thesportsanimal.com or the Sports Animal app. You can hear what Danny White had to say.
Dude, as the volunteers.
I love it, man. All right. Thank y'all so much.
Thanks,
Let me say a word about our sponsors. Landers Ford, people. You saw there's tax things now for new car loans. Ask Brad Bellamy, the general manager. You want to get a new car, truck, or SUV, again, it's a big tax deal. Pay attention. They're open every day of the week except Sunday. Poplar and Houston Levy, Germantown and Collierville come together. And Mount Moriah and 240, the iconic location. Landers Ford. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers Ford, you paid too much. It's the way it is. They're right down the street from our great friends at Hewlett and Dunn. Hey, if you're looking for an affordable pair of boots, you can get 2 pairs of men's boots for less than $500. Check out those Dan Post boots. Great looking boots. I got a pair of black ones. I got a hat to go with them. Great boots, women's, men's clothing. Barber, Filson, STS. They got the luggage, kids' clothes. They got women's clothes, Barber bags, cases, Filson luggage. Got it all. Open every day except Sunday. Hey, let me tell you something else. My Town Roofing. Get out there. Get your roof checked out before it caves in. MyTownRoofing.com. Chris Fiedler, Corey Carter, Major Fusel. Great people, great staff. They'll take care of you. And, hey, check out those gummies, man. HempForPros.com. Aches and pains, trouble sleeping. You will never sleep better. Chill. Order those gummies. They'll go out today. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. For executive producer Brendan Martin, the greatest in the world, see you tonight. Thanks for watching.